Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am doing a live stream on YouTube. It is February 24th. I also did a show this morning dealing with my analysis on the new discoveries from Dr. Shi in her publication. So please watch that. That will be also reposted on different channels. But thank you for joining this live stream. We're going to go over the news that has gone throughout the day. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe to my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can also follow me on X. I have 2 channels on X and on GETTR. And you can be a paid member to my Patreon channel and get my work that way too. Please help support my work by sharing the links, making sure you've subscribed to all the channels. All the links are in the description of this video.
327.
And all my videos. And all my videos. So just click those links and subscribe to those channels. And help support the work by donating. You can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee. And as I mentioned, you can be a paid member to my Patreon channel. It's through the donations and the people that purchase the products that allows me to make thousands of videos for free for you. All right? I don't put stuff behind a paywall, but there are different modalities or methods that people can do to help support my work. Please ask your social media to follow me every time I do a video on YouTube. YouTube reduces my subscribers every time. So please help support my work by asking your social media to follow me. So let me talk about a couple products before we start with the news. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 14 or the Max 35. This is the first pillar to help boost up your immune system. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and swallow. It'll help to boost up your immune system. If you're not feeling well due to the cold season or some sort of allergy, then what you should be doing is taking a teaspoon or a tablespoon or 2 a day. So maintenance, teaspoon a day. If you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. But you should be taking it every day. All right. It's part of the first pillar of a 4-pillar core health protocol that I have. The second pillar is C60. The third pillar is turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to bring down inflammation. That second pillar is to soak up free radicals. And that the fourth pillar is to boost up your energy levels and your metabolism by taking Boomer Boost. So please go to my store, get the Max 14 or Max 35, boost up your immune system. Take it every day. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've created these great deodorants. They're dual purpose, all right? And you can get it in citrus or peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. They're for males or females. It has no aluminum, and it has no baking soda. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. Very high quality ingredients. It's a dual purpose product. You use it as a deodorant, and it'll help to detoxify your body. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a couple bars for your household. It's for males and females. It's a high quality deodorant. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a couple bars for your household and help support my work and help support Rainbow Herbals. And lastly, I have 4 different soaps, structural nail silver soaps. I have 2 in the new packaging. You can get it lavender and peppermint, very high quality structural nail silver soaps. And in the older packaging, I have it in lemongrass and in charcoal tea tree. So get a couple bars for your household, help support my work, and get very high quality products such as the structural nail silver soaps. It's through you purchasing the products that will help to improve your health, but also to help support my work. It's a dual win. It's a dual win. It's a win-win. All right. And That way we can continue on with these types of conversations. I'm going to also open up X Spaces, but I haven't done that yet. Let's first start with CNBC with the Asian trading.
Really, we're kind of worried as we get further into the year when the trade policy gets more fleshed out. Korea, with its large bilateral surplus with the US, is likely to come into the crosshairs. And I think the most important thing that Korea can do is diplomacy. You know, try and build a relationship with Trump. But that's why the political situation is difficult at the moment, right? They haven't got a clear leader to sort of spearhead those efforts. Yeah.
Not let the currency absorb it?
Let the currency absorb it a bit to an extent, but obviously that feeds into inflation. But I think that is a secondary concern to the growth hit. Yeah.
Okay.
Really quickly, Alex, I think it's fascinating that you point out the looming threat of a Chinese competition when it comes to semiconductor names. And of course, we did see that survey suggesting that China is already beating out South Korea technologically. How much, South Korean companies be worried about this right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is often my answer when people say, what about Trump tariffs? I say, if I'm a semiconductor executive, I'm less worried about Trump tariffs than I am about the competition from China. This is a bigger and more structural issue. And there's not a quick fix for it, to be honest. I mean, the government in South Korea have been, in past budgets, there have been some really big spending pledges to try and keep that competitive edge. But South Korea and lots of other countries as well are seeing that competitive edge eroded by the kind of pure power and formidableness of Chinese manufacturing and moving up that value chain very, very quickly.
All right, Alex, fantastic talking. Appreciate the time. Thanks for dropping by. Come and see us again soon. Alex Holzer from the EIU joining us live. And Sherry Cannon, my great colleague as well. That is going to do it for this Tuesday edition of Squawk On. Behalf of Sherry and myself, thank you so much for watching. Keep it right here on CNBC. More market opens just ahead on Street Sides. Keep safe. We will see you tomorrow.
All right. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to pivot over to what's going on with the Pope.
Edward Condon, editor of The Pillar, a source for Catholic news and analysis. Edward, it is great to see you this morning. We appreciate you being here. We have these updates from the Vatican, as you heard Mill's report. Is there anything additional you're hearing about the Pope's condition or potential preparations for a transition in the near future, perhaps?
Well, nothing official in terms of his health that the Vatican has taken to saying there's no new crisis, and in that sense, no news is good news for the Pope's health, I suppose, though it's still in critical condition. But yeah, I think at this point, people are looking at this situation, hearing some of the language the Vatican is using, and often parsing the sort of special vocabulary that Vatican officials use when the Pope is in ill health is a little illuminating. When they start speaking about the Pope passing tranquil nights and being serene, you know that the situation is very grave. And so a lot of cardinals have already started looking at making plans to travel for Rome in the event of a potential papal funeral or conclave. But at the same time, everyone's trying to just stay with the Holy Father spiritually, make sure that he's getting all the prayers he can as long as he's getting the best health care he can.
In your opinion, if his health does not improve, can he still effectively lead the church?
Yes, the short answer is yes. He can be the Pope from a hospital room without any real challenge to his ability to fulfill the office. He can make things more difficult for himself administratively, of course. But Pope John Paul II had a long fight with Parkinson's, and towards the end of his reign, he was greatly incapacitated medically. And he turned that situation into a witness for the dignity of human life, even at the end of life, and even through sickness. And I think Pope Francis is more than capable of performing the same role on the global stage. Of course, administratively being in hospital makes things much more difficult for him, but the Pope's ministry can change over the course of his life, and which bits of it he has to emphasize at any given moment.
Yeah, and we talked to Mills a little bit about this. We know Pope Francis has had a major impact on the church. What do you believe his greatest legacy will be?
I think it's difficult to put your finger on one particular thing that will be the legacy of Pope Francis. He's someone who I think of as having turned the volume up and changed the mood music for Catholicism. That he brought the message of the church to a much higher decibel level for a lot of people in the world who otherwise wouldn't necessarily have heard or paid attention to what the Pope would be saying on any given issue, whether it's climate change or peace in Ukraine or other things. He had a gift for attracting attention and getting his message through. It hasn't been an unalloyed success having all 10 years of Pope Francis's reign. We've seen some major problems that he was elected with an eye to fixing and reforming, which haven't gone according to plan, most notably the organization of the Vatican itself and the financial crises that it's been lurching from in the last couple of decades. So I think it'll be a mixed bag, but Pope Francis has been an historic pope, and hopefully he will continue to have a few more surprises left in his reign for us.
It certainly has been historic. Edward Condon, thank you for weighing in this morning.
Thank you for.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the collagen peptides. This has a very impressive amino acid profile. You can take a look at the label on my website if you want to take a look at it more carefully. But bottom line is that taking collagen is going to help your hair, your nails, your skin, your bones, and your joints. So please take the collagen every day. You get a big scooper. This is about a month's supply. Mix it with soft foods or filtered water. Some people mix it with milk, or they create a smoothie, but take it once a day and do some resistance training to help to build up that muscle and to improve those joints. Really important. To improve your skin, cross-link it with taking vitamin C. By drinking filtered water and vitamin C and taking collagen, they'll cross-link and improve the dermal layer. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the collagen, use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Taking a very good probiotic is really important for your health. All right. And so I have two different types of probiotics. I have the veggie cap version and I also have the powdered version. I prefer taking the powdered version because I take all these powders and these powders I mix in soft foods like hummus every day. So, like lignans and collagen and the gladiator barley and the boomer boost, right? So all these different powders are just easier to take, let's say in the morning or in the afternoon. But you can take the probiotic powdered version, mix it with soft foods or with filtered water, or take the veggie cap version. It's up to you. But taking a good probiotic is really important to improve your gut health, improve you absorbing nutrients, bringing down inflammation, reducing the chances of mutations in the crypt, improving the mucosal lining and your immune system in your gut, improving your metabolism. It'll also help to improve the health of your liver because of the communication between your gut and your liver. You'll be able to sleep better with a good gut biome. You're going to have more mental acuity because of a good gut biome. You're reducing early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's with a good gut biome. So it's just overall health improves with a good gut biome. You'll also see that your skin, nails, and hair are improved in health with a good gut biome. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take these probiotics to improve your gut. All right, what I want to do is I want to go to live now.
Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, to lose any Republican votes on any type of budget framework that is put forth here. So it's going to really heat up in the next couple of days as we are almost in the month of March. Remember, March 14th is that government shutdown deadline. All right, I'm Andrew Pratt. Let's take our first commercial break of the hour. When we come back, we're still talking politics. We'll see
All right, I want to shift over. NVIDIA will burst AI bubble, experts make strong predictions. So this is Fox News.
To the markets, is now all red, all across the board. We open higher across the board now and lower across the board. Dow's off 70, the Nasdaq down 225 points. Show me NVIDIA, please. This is down this morning, $132 per share. Jeff Seeker with me there.
This is breaking news here. Bank of Korea cuts key rate by 25 basis points to 2.75, as expected.
Now, obviously, I read your stuff, Jeff, and yet you're saying NVIDIA, they report on Wednesday, NVIDIA will burst the AI bubble. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, Stuart, and I don't know if you know, but I've been recommending NVIDIA since 2018 on your show. I actually say that repeatedly.
You made a lot of money for it, that's true.
But you know, people paid off their mortgages, bought Bentleys, bought Nantucket beach houses. I mean, people made a lot of money on NVIDIA, but what it's become is it's the curse of high expectations. And the reason why I believe NVIDIA is going to burst the AI bubble is the expectation out of there is that NVIDIA has a triple beat, meaning they beat earnings, they beat revenue, and Jensen Huang increases the expectations for next quarter. A triple beat is that the earnings are gonna be good, but they're not gonna be that good. And of course, we have the issue of DeepSeek. We have the Chinese DeepSeek, which is lingering out there. It's a big mystery, like the Loch Ness Monster. People don't really know what it does or what it could accomplish. But one thing people know is that it is cheaper and may make it less likely that companies will spend the capital expenditures they've spent in the past.
So NVIDIA's numbers on Wednesday, and when they get on the call, Jensen Huang, you think it's a bust?
I think it's a bust.
The stock comes down and takes AI stocks with it.
I think it's a bust, and it's been showing, it's been flatlining, and it's been showing this vulnerability. And when you have company, you reported it this morning, like Microsoft, that are reducing their spending on data centers, you have to take that very seriously because there was so much hype over this stock. This was the belle of the ball, and right now there is going to be some trouble ahead.
You selling your NVIDIA?
I've sold a little of it. I'm going to hold on to some of it. I'm not, as you know, Stuart, I'm not a big seller. I like to hold things long term.
You don't want to pay the capital gains tax.
No, exactly.
I know you.
I'm waiting for Trump's tax cuts. So I'm waiting for him to get rid of the IRS. That would be even better.
All right. So maybe there's going to be a sell-off, especially in NASDAQ. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the vitamin B complex. This will help with cellular metabolism. B1 through 4 vitamins help with the electron transport chain, so it's going to boost up your ATP levels. And B12 helps with your neurons. So when you're older, it's really important to protect your neurons and boost up your metabolism, your cellular metabolism, boost up those energy levels. Extremely important. So please get the B complex on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and protect your neurons. Now, getting good sleep is really important. Why? It's going to help you to consolidate memory. It's going to detoxify your body, and you're going to be well rested. And when you are well rested, you're reducing the chances of early onset of dementia. If you are chronically sleep deprived, what happens is your cortisol levels are up, your immune system goes down, and what also happens is you're collecting toxins in your central nervous system that will lead to early onset dementia. Good night formula you should be taking every day. Why? Well, it has tryptophan, melatonin, passion flower, and GABA to help you sleep. All right. You'll get into 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. And that way you'll be well rested in the morning. You're improving your immune system. You're detoxifying your central nervous system. And you're consolidating memory. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the Good Night Formula every day and get a good night's sleep. It's really important as part of a holistic protocol to get sleep, to slow down the aging process and to boost up your immune system. Digestive enzyme complex, really important to help to break down carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. As you get older, your pancreas doesn't work as well, so you need to supplement and help your pancreas, reduce the load on your pancreas. That's the important piece. When you get older, your pancreas doesn't work as well. But also, if you're an athlete, you don't want to overload your pancreas, so taking a digestive enzyme complex to break up your pre or post-workout fueling will help. It'll help you digest and refuel your body after your workout and recover quicker. But for ones that aren't athletes, younger or older, but for just the ones that are just older, it's important to reduce the load on your pancreas. So please take the digestive enzyme complex and break up those carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Again, one of the enzymes that are in here is bromelain, and bromelain breaks up clots, so it's a dual purpose product. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. Now, it's proteolytic. It'll break up glycoproteins too. Just saying. All right. With that, let's I want to go to this is in the Oval Office with Macron
Thank you very
and
much.
Trump.
We very much appreciate the attention. Today's a big day, and that we had a G7. And President Macron was a very special man in my book. We were together, we did it together. And I think a lot of progress has been made. We've had some very good talks with Russia. We've had some very good talks with others, and we're trying to get the war ended with Russia and Ukraine. And I think we've come a long way in a short period of weeks. And the president's been very helpful also. And we're also talking about trade, various trade deals that we will be doing with France. And we'll be discussing a little bit further. Then we'll have a press conference. Everyone, you can ask some questions. We'll be having a press conference. And we're going to have lunch with the entire French staff. And we look forward to it. And again, the relationship's been very special with France and very special with this gentleman on my right. And we look forward to keeping that going for a long period of time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank Mr. President for his hospitality. We had a good discussion this morning for the G7 here, and for the third year of this war in Ukraine. And I think our common objective here is to build peace and a solid and long-standing peace. And this is what we will discuss, obviously, because I have great respect for bravery and the resistance of Ukrainian people. And we do share the objective of peace, but we are very aware of the necessity to guarantee the solid peace in order to stabilize the situation. I'm here as a friend because Pro Center we've been friends, and we are personal friends, I imagine it, because we work very well together. And I think the US and France always stands on the same side, the right side, I would say, of the story. And this is exactly what's at stake today. And this is a very important moment for Europe as well. And I'm here as well after discussions with all my colleagues to say that Europe is willing to step up, to be a stronger partner, to do more in defense and security for its continent, and as well to be a reliable partner and to be engaged on trade, economy, investment in a lot of topics. So I'm very excited by the discussion we will have, and obviously we will follow up. And I want to thank you again, Mr. President, for your presence for Notre Dame de Paris. It meant a lot for French people, and I want to thank you for that.
It's the cathedral, and they've done a fantastic job. The president's done a great job in bringing it back. That was a terrible thing, like, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Watching that burn was a very horrible, horrible sight, and you've done a fantastic job in bringing it back, so I congratulate you. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Anybody, let me ask you a question.
All right, before we go to the press questions, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the toothpaste. This toothpaste is a structural nano silver toothpaste. It's fluoride free. It's a very high quality toothpaste. It's the best toothpaste that you could buy, actually. And it'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with your gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line, neutralize pathogens, improve your oral hygiene. And by having a good oral hygiene, you're reducing the chances of vascular disease and you're reducing the chances of valvular disease. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the best toothpaste that you can buy, get a few tubes for your household. It's a very high quality toothpaste. Use discount 5 and get $5 off. Get the magnesium and zinc to boost up your immune system. You should take it every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take 1 dose in the morning and take another one in the evening. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. Use discount 5 and get $5 off on any order. And vitamin C, really important to take, boost up your immune system and your skin health. Drink it with filtered water. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take a double dose. Again, this cross-links with collagen, and you're drinking it with filtered water, about 32 to 64 ounces a day of filtered water. Taking the vitamin C and the collagen together will improve your dermal layer. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great vitamin C and magnesium that I have.
Foolish question.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It looks like we're getting very close. The deal's being worked on, and we're, I think, getting very close to getting an agreement. So we get our money back over a period of time. But it also gives us something where I think it's very beneficial to the economy, to them as a country. But, you know, we're in for $350 billion. How we got there, I don't know. But that's a lot of money, a lot of money invested in. We had nothing to show for it. It was the Biden administration's fault. The Europeans are in for about $100 billion, and they do it as in the form of a loan. And the Europeans have been great on this issue. They understood it wasn't fair, and we were able to work something out. But with the Ukrainians, I think I can say that we're very close. Scott's around here someplace. And I think we can say that we're very close. I think we're very close. Do you have something to say about that, Scott?
We are very close. Good. 1 yard line.
All right.
Mr. President.
What?
Would a middle deal include a security guarantee for Ukraine?
Well, it'll be, Europe is going to make sure that nothing happens. I don't think it's going to be much of a problem. I think once we settle, there's going to be no more war in Ukraine. You're not going to have it. It's not going to be a very big problem. That's going to be the least of it.
Mr. President, we're hearing from some Greek media reporting that the U.S. has agreed to shut down a military base in Greece that's been a logistical hub for NATO.
That who shut down?
That the U.S. has agreed to shut it down at the request of Turkey and Russia. Is that all true?
Mark, do you have anything to say about that? Please.
So that's enough. Mr. President,
Is it a no? It's a no, sir. It's not a correct story.
Thank you.
Mr. President, how do you react to people in Europe who say that you are abandoning Ukraine and that you are going to sacrifice the security of Ukraine by making a deal with Putin?
And we're helping Ukraine like nobody's ever helped Ukraine before. And I can say this, if I didn't become president, Ukraine would right now still be at a level where there would be no even thinking about a peace. And it was, it's a sad thing that this happened. This would have never happened, this war, if I were president. Zero chance. And it has happened. So my function is to get you out of the war, get them out of the war, let them live. It's a bloody war. It's a horrible war. Thousands of people are being killed a week. And I would say Russia, maybe 700,000 people. I think Ukraine probably a similar number. And that's not talking about the towns and the cities that have been blown up. That's talking about soldiers. This has been a horrible, bloody mess. And we're going to get it solved. We got to get it solved. And you know, we're not talking about American soldiers, soldiers from this country. We're talking about Russia and Ukraine. But on a humanitarian basis, we have to get this very, very bloody, savage problem solved. And I will say this also, it could lead to World War III if it's not solved. You know, there'll be a point at which it's not going to stop at those two countries. Already there's such involvement from other countries. And it could really lead to a very big war, World War III. And we're not going to let that happen either.
Would you support the idea to send European troops to Ukraine to back the
European troops may go into Ukraine as peacemakers. So when the agreement is done, they can watch that everything's followed properly. I don't think that's going to be a problem. And a lot of the European countries, I think, I don't want to speak for France, but I know that the president's talked about doing that also. I think that'll be a very good day when we go in as peacekeepers as opposed to what's going on right now with everybody being killed. So. Well, we're going to have a backing of some kind, and obviously the European countries are going to be involved. And I don't think you're going to need much backing. I think that's not going to be a problem. Once an agreement is signed, Russia's going to get back to its business, and Ukraine and Europe are going to get back to their business. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Talk about those.
What? I will be meeting with President Zelensky. In fact, he may come in this week or next week to sign the agreement, and which would be nice. I'd love to meet him. We'd meet at the Oval Office. So the agreement's being worked on now. They're very close to a final deal. It will be a deal with rare earths and various other things, and he would like to come, and I understand it, here to sign it, and that would be great with me. I think they did have to get it approved by their council or whoever might approve it, but I'm sure that will happen. With President Cottrell, so yes. I don't know when we speak. We're trying to get this thing worked out, but yeah, at some point I'll be meeting with President Putin.
Monsieur Macron, s'il vous plaît, est-ce que vous pouvez dire quelques mots en français?
I can say a few words in French.
Non, le président l'a dit, je pense que c'est un moment important. C'est un moment important de la discussion. On veut bâtir la paix en Ukraine, et le bilan qui a été rappelé, une réalité, il y a 1 million de morts et de blessés depuis le début de ce conflit et de cette guerre d'agression. Notre volonté, c'est que cette paix dure, parce que nous avons déjà eu un cessez-le-feu. Et le pays n'a pas été respecté, c'était les accords de Minsk, 1 puis 2. Et donc le corps de cette discussion, c'est de s'assurer d'abord qu'il y ait un cessez-le-feu, ensuite que les Ukrainiens soient impliqués. Je pense que ce que je viens de dire à l'instant, le président Trump est très important, c'est-à-dire qu'il va rencontrer rapidement le président Zelensky pour signer cet accord sur les minerais critiques et les terres rares, et que c'est aussi un moyen d'avoir une implication américaine forte. Les Européens sont prêts à prendre leur charge sous des formes diverses, de soutien à l'armée ukrainienne, de présence, y compris pour s'assurer que la paix soit durable. Et l'implication dans la durée des États-Unis d'Amérique à travers cet accord est une bonne chose. Et donc, tout est encore à construire. Et je ne veux pas présenter les discussions. Mais nous partageons les mêmes objectifs. Et ce qu'on a discuté ce matin, pendant 1 heure après la visioconférence ensemble, est-ce qu'on va continuer de travailler, et ce sont pour moi des bonnes avancées. Et l'annonce.
This is exactly what we want to do. We want to build peace with Ukraine. As President Trump mentioned, there are already 1 million dead and wounded in Ukraine since the war began. We had a ceasefire in the past that was not respected. This was under the Minsk Agreements 1 and 2. President Trump, as he said, will be meeting with President Zelensky to sign a deal on rare earths. And we are pleased to see this very strong American involvement. Europe, of course, also stands ready to support Ukraine in various ways, supporting its military. And we don't want to preempt any sort of discussions that are currently underway, but we do see a shared
just want to tell you a little story. So we were at the Eiffel Tower having dinner with your wonderful wife and with my wonderful wife, and we came out and he started speaking the French deal. And we didn't have an interpreter, and he was going on and on and on, and I was just nodding, yes, yes, yes. And he really sold me out, because I got back the next day and I read the papers. I said, that's not what we said. He's a smart customer, I will tell you that.
You know what? I'll tell you, there's something definitely different with Trump since the assassination attempt. He's more cordial and jovial and joking around, which is good. I think it softened him a little bit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Guess what? Cases during the cold season are up. All right. And, it's a little problematic this year relative to last year. There seems to be, some, individuals where they clear it and then it comes back about a week later. But this year, people are getting sick, right? So during the cold season and during the allergy season, you may get an irritation in your throat and you want to mitigate it right away. The best way to do it is to take lozenges and drops to neutralize that irritant and to maintain a mucosal barrier and improve your immune system. I have lozenges and drops that do that. All right. So go to my store, get the lozenges, Manuka honey lozenges, and the elderberry zinc lozenges. It's in a 21 count, it has structural nanosilver. And guess what? Get a couple bags for your household and for your work. And right when you have that irritant, either during the allergy season or the cold season, take it right away and neutralize that irritant. I also have it in drops. All right. You can get it in blueberry in the new packaging, drops in 100 count in each bag, and cherry, and the other one is honey and lemon. So get a couple bags of lozenges and drops for your household and for work. Right when you have that irritant during the cold season or during the allergy season, take them right away and mitigate the problem. But you want to take it right away. That's the whole key. So please go to my store, use discount 5 and get $5 off by, just getting a few bags of these lozenges and drops. It's better to be prepared than unprepared. All right. It's up to you, but cases during this cold season are up. All right, now let's continue on with the Oval Office press questioning.
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out. Let's see what happens. I think we have a chance of a really good settlement between various countries. You're talking about Europe, and you're talking about Ukraine, it's part of that whole situation. The other side has a lot of support also. So let's see how it all works out. It might work out. Look, you can never make up lives. One thing you can make up the money, but you can't make up the lives. A lot of lives lost. I think probably a lot more lives than people are talking about. It's been a rough war, but I think we're close to getting it solved.
Do you think that Doge could benefit from more streamlined communications? There's that email telling employees to do 5 things that they've done last week. Agency has then told people to ignore it. But
About the last email that was sent, where he wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great, because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows that they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to, but that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group. So what they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And where's all that? Where's the money going? We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far, and we just started. We're actually going to Fort Knox to see if the gold is there. Because maybe somebody stole the gold, tons of gold. So I think it was actually, there was a lot of genius in sending it. We're trying to find out if people are working. And so we're sending a letter to people, please tell us what you did last week. If people don't respond, it's very possible that there is no such person or they're not working.
Some of the agency heads instructed their employees not to respond. They're waiting on further guidance, but Elon Musk's tweet said a failure to respond would be taken as a resignation. So there's been a disconnect in communication.
Yeah.
Are you concerned at all about that?
No. That was done in a friendly manner. Only things such as perhaps Marco at State Department where they have very confidential things, or the FBI where they're working on confidential things. And they don't mean that in any way combatively with Elon. They're just saying there are some people that you don't want to really have them tell you what they're working on last week. But other than that, I think everyone thought it was a pretty ingenious idea. We have to find out where these people are. Who are they? And we said, if you don't respond, we assume you're not around.
And that holds, that stands.
And you're not getting paid anymore, too. So, we're doing a real job. And we just had a poll come out, I guess the Harvard poll, saying that it's massively popular what we're doing.
Mr. President, do you still believe in NATO, in the alliance between Europe and America in NATO?
NATO is very much involved in this. When I first got elected at the very beginning, first term, I got hundreds of billions of dollars put into NATO. NATO had no money because they hadn't paid for years. And I said, look, if you don't pay, we're not going to be a part of NATO. We're not going to protect. We're not going to do what we're supposed to do. And we took in hundreds of billions of dollars into NATO. Now, NATO is a good thing if it's done properly and if it's used properly.
Mr. President, these days you speak a lot about the tariffs in Canada, in Mexico, and Europe. I want to know what is your idea about if you want to make the same thing.
Can you talk up a little bit? Can you talk a little louder? You have a beautiful voice, but you're not. Where are you from? From Italy. Oh, I love it. Go ahead.
I want to know if you have the same idea with the
Well, look, I love Italy. Italy is a very important nation. We have a wonderful woman as your leader, and she was on the conversation today, one that we had, the G7. And no, I think Italy is doing very well. I think Italy's got very strong leadership with Georgia. Any other questions on here? Yes, ma'am.
Can you clarify what you meant in your truth today on the major economic development transactions between Russia and Russia?
With respect to what, Russia?
I mean, it's all like major economic development transactions between the United States and Russia.
Yeah, we're trying to do some economic development deals. They have a lot of things that we want, and we'll see. I mean, I don't know if that will come to fruition, but
see, he's already setting in motion what I was saying with this whole treaty, with the ramp down of the war and a potential trade agreement between the United States and Russia. And he's setting it up in motion right here. The way to stop the crazy train with this deep state Cold War mentality is to have Russia integrate closer to the Western powers and especially the United States economically. That is the way forward. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the olive leaf extract. This is a dual purpose product. It's going to help your immune system and your cardiovascular system. How? Brings down inflammation and helps to bring down your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. This is a very powerful supplement. Take it every day to improve your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off.
You know, they have massive rare earth. It's a very large, it's actually the largest in terms of land. It's by far the largest country. And they have very valuable things that we could use, and we have things that they could use, and it would be very good if we could do that. I think it would be a very good thing for world peace and lasting peace. Well, I mean, our first, by far, our first thing that we want to do, the first element of the overall transaction is ending the war. But if, just as we're doing with Ukraine, if we could do some economic development in terms of Russia and getting things that we want, something like that would be possible, yes.
In the US.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Can you explain the rationale of how the US voted against the UN resolutions that Ukraine proposed and also the US?
I would rather not explain it now, but it's sort of self-evident, I think.
Mr. President, what about increasing the tariffs on products from the European Union? Is that still something for today?
Well, it's not increasing, it's reciprocal. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. So it's not a question of increasing. If they charge us 20%, we charge them 20%. If they charge us 30 or 40%, then we do that too. So that would be on European Union, but that really would be with respect to everyone. It's reciprocity. So reciprocal, whatever they charge us, we charge them. Nobody has a problem. Even you, I see you don't have a problem anymore, right?
Mr. President, are you thinking of going to Moscow soon, maybe in May for the 9th of May for the
I mean, not soon, but I would be certainly, if this all gets settled out, which I think it will, sure, I would go there.
On the 9th
And you'd come here.
on the 9th of May on the race square?
I don't know, 9th of May, no, I think that's pretty soon. But no, at the appropriate time, I would go to Moscow.
Monsieur le Président, est-ce que l'emploi de toute française
I think the work
comme président de
within weeks. Yeah, I think so, right? Whatever you think so. I'd like to ask, I think we could end it within weeks, if we're smart. If we're not smart, it'll keep going and we'll keep losing young, beautiful people that shouldn't be dying. And we don't want that. And remember what I said, this could escalate into a third world war. And we don't want that either.
Mr. President, your honorary Steve Witkoff suggested a temporary ceasefire in the conflict, but the Russian government has denied that out of hand. You worry that they're not doing it.
No, I think they, at some point will agree to that. I think they probably wanted to. And I think once you have a ceasefire, it's going to end because they're not going from a ceasefire back to war. I think people have had their full. I'm just glad I was able to help because there was no communication with Russia until I came along. Biden didn't communicate. He couldn't communicate with his own child. So Biden didn't communicate. He couldn't. It was terrible. He hadn't spoken to Putin in 3 years. You're trying to end the war. People are being killed. Every week, thousands of people are being killed. Soldiers, in this case, mostly. Also towns, as missiles go in and back and forth. No, it's a shame. This should have never happened. This is a very sad, this is going to go down in the history books. This is a very sad moment because that should have been stopped. That should have never started. And if it did start, it should have stopped the first week, not 3 years later. Okay?
Juste, je pense que la question de votre collègue qui a été posée en français qui rejoint les questions posées par les collègues américains. D'abord, cette discussion est utile et construire la paix est une nécessité. La deuxième chose, c'est qu'il y a aujourd'hui une capacité de dissuasion qui est restaurée et que c'est ce que veut dire le président Trump quand il n'y aura plus de problème. Je pense que la force de réengagement américain aujourd'hui, c'est en quelque sorte l'incertitude aussi pour le président Poutine. Et donc il y a une capacité de dissuasion qui est là, qui permet de sceller d'abord sans doute une trêve, la capacité à vérifier que cette trêve est respectée, et ensuite un accord de paix qui permettra de reconstruire l'Ukraine et de lui apporter aussi des garanties de sécurité. Dans le cadre de ces garanties de sécurité, nous pensons que nous avons notre rôle à jouer. Et donc, on verra à ce moment-là des discussions, je ne peux pas la présenter, ce qui est nécessaire pour que l'Ukraine puisse rester un pays souverain. Et d'ailleurs, dans les discussions entre l'Ukraine et les États-Unis d'Amérique, il y a cette question d'une souveraineté ukrainienne qui est respectée. Et donc, nous, ce que nous avons préparé en particulier avec nos partenaires britanniques, dans le cadre d'un travail très étroit qu'on a mené ces dernières semaines, et partagé avec tous les pays européens et alliés qui sont prêts à s'y joindre, c'est l'idée de dire on est prêt à apporter ces garanties de sécurité. Les conditions, elles doivent être définies. Elles doivent être définies par l'accord. Ça peut aller jusqu'à l'envoi, comme l'a dit le président, de troupes qui auront observé que la paix est bien respectée, qui auront se positionné, pas sur la ligne de front, pas pour justement, en quelque sorte, être dans le conflit, mais marquer une présence comme une garantie. Il y a d'autres moyens de soutenir qui peuvent être des soutiens capacitaires à l'armée, des structures nouvelles. Et je pense aussi que l'accord qui est discuté, le président l'a dit, la crédibilité américaine qui est mise dans ce moment, c'est aussi montrer que chacun est dans son rôle et que nous avons une unité européenne et américaine, et donc avec une forme de garantie que les Américains prennent par la discussion sur les minerais critiques qui sont en train de finaliser.
That is the most beautiful language. I have no idea what he's saying, but that is the most elegant, beautiful language. Go ahead, please.
This is a question that was asked by several. What we need to do is make sure that we are building peace. We have deterrence capabilities that have been restored. As President Trump said, there won't be any more problems. We've seen the U.S. re-engagement and the message that that sends to Mr. Putin. We have deterrence, which will allow a truce to take place, verification of that truce, and then a peace agreement can be put in place so that we can start rebuilding Ukraine with security guarantees. And we have a role to play in that. Again, I'm not preempting any discussions, but we've spoken about Ukraine's sovereignty, and that has been a subject of discussion between the U.S. and Ukraine. We have also been working closely with our British partners this week. We've shared this information with other European countries, and we are ready and willing to provide those security guarantees, which could perhaps include troops, but they would be there to maintain peace. They would not be along the front lines. They would not be part of any conflict. They would be there to ensure that the peace is respected. Our assistance may include other capacity building, perhaps for the military. We see U.S. credibility here. We each have our role to play, but we will be done in a united fashion.
You give up the part of his territory?
Well, we're going to see. It's a negotiation that's just starting, and they've been fighting. And, there's been a lot of land that's been taken, so we'll have to see how that works out as part of the negotiation. I will say there was great unity in that room today, via Skype or whatever, but there was great, tremendous unity today in that room with the other countries.
Back, they take it back, what they lost in the past years.
That's not an easy thing to do, right? It's not easy. You're just asking whether or not you can take back the land that they lost. And I say that, yeah, perhaps some of it, yeah, I hope so. But that's not an easy thing to do.
Macron on the program.
It's going to be something we're talking about.
Will you convince Vladimir Putin to accept European troops as peacekeepers? Will you think?
Yeah, he will accept that.
He will accept
I've asked him that question.
You talked to him?
I've asked him that question.
Is France going to lift the block on the
Because he said, look, if we do this deal, he's not looking for more war. He doesn't mind, but I've specifically asked him that question. He has no problem with it.
Is France going to lift the block on the 300 billion in frozen Russian assets in Belgium? France has opposed unfreezing it to pay Ukraine and compensate the U.S. for its support. Is France going to lift its opposition to that?
This is what, I mean, we speak about frozen assets. We already used them to back precisely the loans negotiated at the G7. And it's part of the sanctions. So it will depend on the follow-up of the discussions. But clearly, with respect to international law, it's just frozen assets now. You can take the proceeds of the frozen assets, but you cannot take the assets themselves because it's not respecting international law, and we want to respect them.
How is one different than the other? You can take the proceeds from it, how can you not?
Because it's very different. You keep the assets, you take the proceeds because they are paralyzed in a certain way. You take the proceeds during the wartime, but you keep the assets, and it's part of the negotiation at the end of the war. Because, I mean, this war costed all of us a lot of money. And this is the responsibility of Russia because the aggressor is Russia. So at the end of the day, this frozen asset should be part of the negotiation. All in all.
Will France support the U.S. being compensated?
I support the idea of Ukraine first being compensated because they are the ones who lose a lot of their fellow citizens and they're being destroyed by this attack. Second, all of those who paid for to be compensated, but not by Ukraine, by Russia, because they were the ones to aggress.
Again, just so you understand, Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total defaults, and it was through, like the US, loans, guaranteed grants, and we provided real money, to be clear. We have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan, because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day, in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day, and Russia will have paid for that.
If you believe that, it's okay with me. If they get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But you know, that's only fair.
You're literally seeing in real time the difference in perspective of how to get paid back with this whole war effort. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the NAC. NAC is something that I've added to my stack. Why? Many people in the whole anti-aging, health, and wellness world found many benefits from stacking with NAC with their protocol. NAC boosts up their glutathione levels. That's going to soak up more free radicals. In addition, it helps to calm the nervous system, reduce anxiety. So that's going to bring down cortisol levels and help with your immune system and allow you to sleep better. But also it helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Follow my advice. This is something that I do. Boost up those glutathione levels, detoxify your kidney and your liver, and calm your central nervous system with NAC. Use discount 5 on any order, you get $5 off. Another great supplement you should be taking every day to help with your cardiovascular health is omega-3. Omega-3 will bring down LDL levels, increase your HDL levels so your total cholesterol is improved, lower systemic inflammation, and prevent red blood cells from oversticking, so you won't be forming too many clots, overclotting. So you don't want overclotting. So omega-3 helps with that. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the omega-3.
We're negotiating everything, and everything's on the table, and we'll see if we can get some land back, and we'll see about a lot of different things. And we're going to be making a little speech and say a few words. And a little while, we're going to have another meeting, a luncheon meeting, and we'll see you in about 2 hours. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to CNBC here just to get the business news.
Topics down 0.3%, but the real key out here is the Japanese yen, which is weaker by about 0.25% as we speak. Japanese heavyweights are all losing ground because it's a bit of a catch-up on account of the fact that Japan was out of action yesterday. So this is catching up to Friday's fall in the US markets. And also Trump's tariff risks and all of that's playing out on the macro front. So fast retailing, which is the most heavy weighted stock on the index, is down 3%. You have Advantis, which is down about 4%, and SoftBank Group is down in excess of 3%. Checking on Japan's trading houses, after Warren Buffett said Berkshire Hathaway will likely continue to raise its stake. That's a major endorsement coming in from the investing legend. Warren Buffett stating in his letter to shareholders that the trading houses had all agreed to moderately relax the investment limits that cap ownership of the houses below a 10% threshold. Shares.
I'm going to shift over to live now from Fox. They published a segment about Wall Street reacts to Apple's $500 billion investment.
Some big news on Wall Street and also in the tech industry as Apple announced on Monday a $500 billion investment into the United States facilities over the next 4 years. A post right now here on Live Now from Fox from the White House, also from Tim Cook, saying, as a proud American company, we are thrilled to continue to make significant investments in the U.S. Today, we are announcing a $500 billion commitment to support American innovation, advanced manufacturing, and high-tech job creation. So very interesting in terms of this big announcement. Let's dive into what it means for Apple, what it means for the stock market, the U.S. economy. We're going to be joined right now by senior market writer for Barron's, Paul LaMonica. Paul, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And obviously, this is a big deal for Apple to invest this amount of money, and it had a reflection on the market. What did we see today when Apple made this announcement?
Yeah, we had a nice day for the markets, a bit of a rebound after Friday's sell-off, at least with the Dow. Apple was higher, and I think that investors are taking some comfort from the fact that Apple, the world's most valuable company, is investing more in the United States. Now, the question I think that still remains is how much of these investments are truly going to be new investments, since Apple has been, making a commitment to U.S. facilities pretty much going back to the first Trump administration, making a big announcement, promising more jobs in Austin, Texas, way back in 2018. So I think in some respects, this is just a continuation of what Apple has already been doing. And clearly, no one wants to be on the wrong side of President Trump's tariffs right now. And Tim Cook is savvy enough to know that, having some more investments in the United States is probably politically smart for Apple as well.
And we've seen some tech executives cozy up next to him, reestablish some of those relationships. And you mentioned the tariffs there announced against China in a 10% fashion. How much do you think that impacted that? You said it was this along the trend, but how much did the tariffs have an impact on this investment, this announcement?
Yeah, I think that the timing of it clearly is probably related to the fact that tariffs are first and foremost on the president's mind right now. And, clearly Apple and many other companies, not just American companies, but major chip manufacturers like Taiwan Semiconductor, they all want to do everything they can to avoid as much of the tariffs as possible, since that does eat into profits. And, I think these companies, all things being equal, would like to sustain their very high profit margins and not have to look for reasons to cut costs, which often, requires lower amounts of jobs in order to boost their profits and keep shareholders happy.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And of course, looking at this not necessarily in a vacuum, but with all the context, you can certainly weigh those factors. I want to ask you, because this is a $500 billion investment by Apple. You mentioned some of the different facilities in Arizona and Texas, but also is the creation of 20,000 jobs, some high-skilled manufacturing jobs. When the markets look at some of these investments, both in facilities, but also in people, how much does that weigh? How does the market react in that way?
Yeah, I think the market likes, of course, to see Apple making any sort of announcements that furthers the narrative that they are an innovative company. And let's be honest, I think that is a big problem for Apple right now, in that what is the next really new thing? Is it going to be the AI enhancements to Apple's software and services that will drive people to upgrade their phones? Because we have, we're on the iPhone 16 now, and for many people the newest phones aren't really all that dramatically different than prior models. And I think that's why a lot of times people are waiting longer to upgrade. They're not upgrading as often as they used to, and that eats into sales for Apple, because Apple is predominantly a company that
a lot of people are not upgrading is because it's too costly. These phones with these high features are just too costly for people to continually upgrade. They price themselves out of the market.
And all of the services that are part of that ecosystem.
That is a very good point. You also mentioned a term I wanted to bring up, artificial intelligence, because we saw the announcement at the Oval Office about Stargate with different companies, not necessarily Apple, but the tech industry continues to invest in the United States in such a big way. When you look at it in that terms, how much does an AI influence on Apple's decision as well?
I think AI clearly is a major influence because that has been one of the problems for the company and the stock over the past year or so. Apple has obviously done quite well. No one's going to be by poverty for Apple shareholders and Apple executives. But that being said, they have lagged the performance of some of the other AI darlings, NVIDIA in the chip sector, and that's a company that reports earnings after the closing bell Wednesday. Wall Street will be watching that extremely closely. You know, and companies like Microsoft, which has their partnership with Sam Altman's OpenAI, there are a lot of companies right now that might have a bit of a technological edge over Apple, and Apple is playing catch up in some respects in that in that regard.
Yeah, and there's, of course, we've talked about that time again with different reporters when you're talking about Apple, such a big name, such a big brand, such a big influence on the industry. Maybe being behind isn't the worst thing for them. And I feel like we're on the same wavelength because you mentioned NVIDIA and what's going to happen on Wednesday. Give me a preview of what's to come because they have been a rocket ship for this tech industry for AI. What do we expect midweek?
Yeah, NVIDIA earnings are going to be coming out after the closing bell, and clearly investors are expecting another quarter of phenomenal, very strong sales growth and profit growth. The question always in the case of NVIDIA is, will it be enough to beat Wall Street expectations and justify getting the stock back on track? Because they have fallen back a little bit. There are definite concerns now about competition from China. There was that big sell-off a few weeks ago when out of nowhere, this thing called DeepSeek was revealed to the world. And I think that started to have people questioning, do we really need these high-priced chips from NVIDIA and other companies when companies might be able to spend on cheaper AI services that may not have all the bells and whistles that come with NVIDIA's flagship chips, but are good enough for what the average consumer might need.
That is a very good point. The bar is just set so high for NVIDIA. We'll see how that fluctuates, how the markets respond in that way. Paul Monaco with Barron's, I appreciate your time, your insight. Thanks again for joining us here on Live Now from Box.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver gel, either in the tube form or in the quick dispenser. It's a dual purpose product. It helps to heal your skin if you have a cut or an abrasion. You can use it as a skincare product. You put it on your skin, let's say before you go to bed, exfoliate in the morning, and you'll notice your skin is better. So it's a great way to treat your skin topically. If people are around you are sick or you're not feeling well, guess what? Put it on your hands, around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears, around your mouth, lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. Way better than Perel. And after you shave, put it on your skin and you'll reduce that razor burn and it'll help to heal the skin. It's a great way for guys after they shave to treat their skin as an aftershave. But females, if you're shaving your legs, guess what? Use the structural nano silver gel and it helps to heal your skin, prevent razor burn. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use this dual purpose product. Get it either in the tube form or in the quick dispenser form. Both are very high quality. Be prepared. You never know when you need it. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and get $5 off any order. Now, let's talk about how to improve your cardiovascular health and your bone health. Take D3 and K2 together, drink milk or take calcium, do some resistance training, and you're going to start strengthening your bones and increasing your bone density over time. Also, taking D3 and K2 will help with your cardiovascular health because it's going to reduce the plaque buildup around your artery, around your arteries. So, a lot of times when you have plaque buildup, you'll actually have calcium buildup around it. This is a great way to reduce the calcium depositing around your plaque, but also to slowly pull it out. So it's helping reduce the plaque formation. I have a longevity box called the Longevity Cardiovascular Box that has a whole bunch of supplements to actually improve your cardiovascular health, reduce the chances of further plaque formation, and over time shrink the actual blockage. All right. How it works is that it has the K2 and the D3, but also supplements that soak up free radicals, bring down your LDL levels, reduce inflammation. And by doing that in a holistic way, you can actually improve your cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin K2 and D3, help with your bones, help with your cardiovascular health, but also vitamin D3 helps to have cells go into apoptosis if they've been infected, so they can die off. It's a great supplement. You should be taking it every day. It's a great stack for bone health and cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. Follow my protocol. It works. You'll get healthy. Now, it's a holistic approach. It's not just about taking supplements. It's also about proper diet, proper exercise, proper sleep. You got to do some balancing exercises, some stretching, some resistance training, and some cardio. Mindfulness or prayer helps them. And you got to learn new things to get that neuroplasticity going. So please go to my store, get the products, and follow this holistic approach, and you're going to get healthy. You're going to slow down the aging process. You're going to boost up your immune system. You're going to improve your endocrine system, and your overall health is going to improve, and you're going to have more longevity and more vitality. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now, the bottom line is my protocol works. You just got to follow it. All right. Let's go to live now here.
Now remember, these jets were scrambled by the Italian Air Force to shepherd and ferry the American Airlines jet down onto the tarmac in Rome. Now, after landing, passengers were loaded onto buses and taken to the terminal where each passenger and their personal items underwent additional security screenings that were time-consuming and felt slightly heightened, especially for arrivals. So if you were following this story on social media just yesterday, you probably saw a lot of this video. Passengers in the plane shooting the video outside themselves of those Italian Air Force jets that were scrambled because there were reports that a bomb threat was made, but the airline saying non-credible at that. So wanted to make sure we got that. Speaking of Rome there, live picture at the Vatican as we continue to follow all of Pope Francis's updates on his health. We also have a live picture too there at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. You can see the flights coming in. Of course, the Delta Hub nonetheless. It's a little after 9 o'clock there on this Monday night. All right. In the meantime, though, like I said, we're in a new hour. It's a little past the 7 o'clock hour here, Mountain Time. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us. What we're going to do for the next 30 minutes or so, because it is the 3-year anniversary, the 3-year mark since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we're going to dive into all the news surrounding the war in this present moment there at the United Nations. A lot of news on the war itself, also in the Kremlin, also in Washington, and in the capitals of Europe as well. So let's get it started. Fox News correspondent Rebecca Castor with more.
As the fighting in Ukraine enters its 4th year, European leaders are racing to Washington to have a say in how it ends. With the U.S. leading peace talks, President Trump welcomed French President Emmanuel Macron to the White House Monday.
I think we could end it within weeks if we're smart. If we're not smart, it'll keep going.
Macron is looking to use his friendship with the president to ensure Ukraine is protected during peace negotiations. Trump shocked many world leaders last week when he called Ukrainian President Zelensky a dictator, but he wouldn't call Russian President Vladimir Putin the same today.
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out. Let's see what happens.
The White House is also working on a deal to access Ukraine's rare earth minerals as compensation for the U.S. sending billions in aid. Talk of repayment led to an awkward moment between Trump and Macron.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money. To be clear,
If you believe that, it's okay with me.
But Macron also says Europe is ready to step up, as France and Britain discuss sending peacekeepers to Ukraine after the war.
Europe is willing to step up, to be a stronger partner, to do more in defense and security for this continent.
And today, the United Nations General Assembly voted down a U.S. resolution to end the war in Ukraine that did not mention Russia's aggression in the conflict. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Rebecca, thanks so much. In the meantime, let's bring into the conversation now our friend, national security analyst and expert, and retired Marine intelligence officer, Hal Kemper, and he joins me. And Hal, before we get into our conversation, and there's a lot to get to, it's kind of head spinning to even know where to start here. But point of personal privilege, you have almost every day for these 3 years been providing such great insight, analysis, and expertise on literally the day-to-day developments on the battlefield in this war that I can't even believe is still ongoing. The 3-year mark today since the invasion started. So Hal, let's start at the United Nations today. The United States failed to get the Assembly to approve its resolution here. Our resolution apparently had no mention of the fact that Russia was the aggressor and that they started this war. They were the main provocateur here. Are you concerned that the United States at a world body like the UN is ceding the moral ground when, for example, Vladimir Putin hasn't really put much on the table as far as concessions are concerned in these very nascent talks?
Andrew, it's interesting. It's not I'm concerned that in the public space, so to speak, that it does look like President Trump has aligned himself with the same talking points that Vladimir Putin's been putting out for years. It is the Russian talking points. Mike Waltz was recently interviewed, and he had a tough time trying to explain what concessions, what was different, if you will, from what the U.S. was saying now, as opposed to what Putin was putting out there, and certainly to try and find any concessions that the Russians are making. So, and it's not so much my concern; it's a concern that is really being said by the leaders in Europe. You know, if you listen to the incoming chancellor of Germany, it looks like he's forming a coalition right now. His party won. It's going to be a center-right party. He had extremely strong language about the U.S., talking about Germany and Europe needs to go its own way, that they need to separate themselves from dependence with the United States. I mean, it was some of the strongest language, certainly from Germany, the strongest I've heard since World War II. And frankly, whereas he's a staunch believer in democracy and capitalism and world trade, it was just it was echoing throughout Europe. You were hearing other leaders say the same thing. You even saw that piece with President Macron, that he's feeling compelled to jump in and correct President Trump on some of these key points, about how much money Europe gave, because President Trump was saying, well, the U.S. gave $350 billion and, so much more, and dramatically understating the amount of money that Europe had put towards Ukraine. And feeling that he has to step in, even though they're friends, they have a long relationship, they have a good rapport. He was having to say this, and then you look at the European side. I saw European leaders coalescing around President Zelensky, and basically going with a, if you will, almost a European first sort of methodology there, separating themselves from the U.S. And I heard language over and over again by leaders in Europe today talking about we're not going to listen to what Trump and Putin are saying or doing. And the fact that they're lumping Trump and Putin together like that, I just found very disturbing, certainly from a rhetorical standpoint, but it does seem to have more than it's more than just rhetoric. I'm seeing substance following that rhetoric.
Okay, then Hal, back to the UN briefly though. Why didn't our resolution include a part that said that Russia was the aggressor in all of this? Was that some type of play to Vladimir Putin to get him to the table? Because from what I've been reading, from what I understand, Putin has not put anything forward yet, has he? I mean, President Trump said this today. Putin would accept European peacekeepers in Ukraine as part of a potential peace deal. Really? He would?
Putin hasn't said that. In fact, Putin came back and said no. Putin's been disagreeing with some of these things that President Trump has said as far as what the conversation says. You know, it's interesting. There was a couple of resolutions. One was very clear that yes, Russia invaded Ukraine. That's the one that the General Assembly passed. I think there were eight no's, and the U.S. was one of the 8. Very disturbing that we're joining China and Russia and Belarus and some other countries in voting the same way on something as important as Ukraine. That's really got the world's attention. And of course, a UN resolution doesn't really have any weight. It's more of a symbolic thing overall. But it did, the UN is saying, hey, look, Russia invaded. And, I would point out, though, that after President Trump had talked about, basically saying, blaming Ukraine or blaming President Zelensky for the invasion, that he finally did in an interview turn around and say, okay, well, yeah, Russia did invade. And but it's just the way that this is rolling out. It's causing great discomfort. It's causing great discomfort with our European allies. It's causing great discomfort with our allies across the world. We're hearing stuff coming from the Far East, where various leaders are very concerned because they're looking at the U.S. as the backstop should there be a war with China. And so countries like, South Korea, Japan, the Philippines are all unnerved. Markets are all obviously very unnerved if you look at how market performance is going. So, yeah, there's a lot going on out there. And if it is a grand plan, if you will, if it is a grand negotiation scheme to lull Putin into a sense of comfort by not using terms that make him uncomfortable, and this has been talked about a lot, that they're basically, we're taking away the language that he would object to. We're trying to break down the barriers. We'll bring him to the table to make some sort of a peace deal or some sort of armistice deal, or at least a ceasefire deal, if you will, with the Ukrainians. I think they need to really think about that because, the means and ends come very much to mind when you're looking at the effect this is having in Europe. I'm just seeing the Europeans coming together in ways that are really, really almost disturbing in some ways. Look, I'm a bit of a student of history, and if you look back at the causation of World War I, World War II, and wars in Europe, you look at some of the language, you look at some of this breakaway sort of thing that's going on. And there was a rather interesting study done some years out. It was kind of a futurist projection of where will Europe be, or where will the world be 20 years hence. And one of the interesting things, and it was by a very, very, very smart group that was putting this together, came out and they said a possible alignment of Germany and Turkey against, the U.S. and other countries. I'm like, well, that's kind of a weird idea. I have to tell you, today when I was hearing some of that language, I go, I could see where a path is opening there, where Germany takes a very separate pathway to aligning with other countries, and maybe this is the trigger that moves it that direction. And Germany is a very powerful country. They are the most economically powerful country in Europe.
So, Hal, I guess my final question about this point we're discussing here, if that is the goal strategically, to massage the language in order to get Putin to the table here, has it borne any fruit, or will it bear any fruit? The United States seemingly is putting a lot at stake with what our policy is vis-a-vis the war, vis-a-vis our support for the Ukrainians. it seems like a lot of eggs in one basket. And Putin, as you discussed so much here, not the most reliable narrator and actor.
That's a good way of putting it. Not the most reliable. I would think of some other terms, but I'll go with not most reliable. Yeah, and look, I will say there has been some progress. Lavrov did meet with Secretary Rubio down in Saudi Arabia. They did have a long discussion. Steve Witkoff had a long discussion with Putin himself, and about 3.5 hours, I think, or something. So it was a very, very substantive, long discussion there. So there has been certainly some movement in that direction. The Russians actually talked about essentially liquidating those frozen assets and using those towards reconstruction. Obviously, the terms of what they talked about were 20% of that reconstruction will go for Russian-occupied Ukraine, while Russia still occupies Ukraine. There's some real issues with how they rolled that whole thing out, but they did make that offer, if you will, or at least not let's say offer so much, but they did bring it up as a talking point, as a negotiation point, as something that they would take a hard look at. So yes, there has been some progress. I don't want to say that this hasn't met with some level of success. Of course, the big issue is will it move in that direction? Interestingly, and I don't know, and if it is, it's a very interesting way of doing this. There's a lot of discussion today that, and certainly yesterday, that President Zelensky may sign or come up with some sort of agreement on that rare earths deal.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
The first one came out, and it was, certainly unacceptable. It was $500 billion for the U.S., and I think President Trump was putting out the $350 billion is what Ukraine owes us, and of course, the aid that we had delivered to Ukraine was never conditioned on repayment. It was just aid to help Ukraine in its war and its fight against Russia. But aside from all the precedent stuff, if you actually look at how much is owed, might be 174 billion, and then you get into, well, how much of that was really aid that could potentially be something that they could repay, and it gets less than 80 billion. So it's a whole different thing. But it's interesting to hear that they might come up with an agreement. I kind of look at this and go, this, I don't know if you want to say inverse logic, if you will, this perversity of logic, in terms of doing the thing where you lean towards Russia in order to get Ukraine to come to the table. Well, if it succeeds, I got to tell you, it's truly an interesting form of negotiation strategy. One well beyond Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal. I'll tell you that much. But
so Al, I want to talk about.
But it is interesting.
Yeah, I want to talk about the rare earths minerals deal here, because according to Boris Johnson, the former UK Prime Minister, he says Ukraine is just days away from signing a deal to cede back control of its rare earth minerals to the United States. Is this separate and apart from the settlement talks about ending the war? How does the United States establishing and brokering a deal for access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals market, how does that bring an end to the war?
I don't think anything is separate apart, and I've heard some say it is separate apart. It's a completely separate deal. I go, well, nothing's a separate deal.
What does that have to do with ending the fighting?
It has nothing to do with ending the fighting. If anything, it just puts pressure on Putin. And in that regard, having a deal like that in place, and of course, this is one of the things that came out of the deal. It's like, oh, well, the U.S. says we'll provide certain security guarantees for Ukraine, but they were non-specified security guarantees. It just wasn't, there was nothing in there of substance that they could point to. We were going to offer peacekeeping forces. We weren't talking about putting troops on the ground. It wasn't really clear what it was, and it kind of left the door open because the U.S. just cut off all arms aid altogether. And I would mention of all the money that's been allocated for Ukraine, there's still about $57 billion outstanding that has not been spent or used up for aid to Ukraine. So there's a lot of money literally just sitting on the table without any more allocations that can play a decisive role in that war effort. So with that, it wasn't entirely clear. If there is an agreement on the table, I think that those are issues that they're going to have to work out much more closely. That would put pressure on the Russians, so much so that Putin today was talking about that there will be a deal with the U.S. on rare earths coming from Russia. And magnanimously, he offered rare earths from Russian-occupied Ukraine. I said, well, that's really something. And he's trying to make a deal on rare earths itself. And I just find it an absolutely fascinating dual negotiation going on here.
Sure.
With Russia offering it, Ukraine offering it, the U.S. kind of, looking at the different offers and stuff. It's fascinating. And frankly, that may be part of the purpose of why they did that.
Yeah, I mean, it just dawned on me, it's not necessarily just Russia and Ukraine that need to negotiate via the mediator, the U.S. The U.S. also has to, offer something or bide their time with Ukraine, not just with Russia. And so that was somewhat illuminating. Thank you, Hal. I want to talk, though, about what Zelensky said over the weekend about stepping down from political power as president. If more security guarantees were given to his country, or say a promise of NATO membership. I just want to put this up here from Fox News saying, ready to resign. Zelensky said he would step down as president of Ukraine if it meant his nation would be accepted into NATO. Now, Hal, does this belie the argument that we were talking about last week that was proffered by President Trump, calling Zelensky a dictator, saying that there hasn't been elections in the country since 2019, even though the country is under martial law and it is prohibited here. Is this someone who is clinging to power, saying that he's ready to resign? And that could be still in wartime, Hal. He's ready to resign if he got more security guarantees.
Well, what's interesting is, first off, I don't think President Zelensky is clinging to power in any way, shape, or form. He was elected to office. Russia invaded. They, like any country in a situation like that, they mainly went to martial law. They've been in martial law ever since. Their country is still a big chunk of it's occupied by Russia. There's about as fierce a fighting as you're going to. It's the most fierce fighting anywhere in the world. The casualties are unbelievable, and so with that, they can't hold an election. It's not like the U.S. in World War II. The U.S. in World War II, yes, we held an election, but the U.S. was not occupied by Germany or Japan in World War II. The U.S., for the most part, with the exception of some, Pacific territories, was largely intact in World War II. There was no foreign occupation. So even though we were in a war, we were able to hold an election, and of course, and then I would also bring out, of course, the U.S. also was able to do it in the Civil War. That's a different discussion, but with this, if you look at what he offered, he said, if Ukraine is given NATO membership, that would require the U.S., the Trump administration, to completely pivot 180 and agree to grant NATO membership to Ukraine. That would be an amazing accomplishment. And at that point, I think President Zelensky would do well by saying, hey, it's time to hold elections. I've been holding office for a long period of time, and to step down. The other one he said is if there's a peace agreement, and I want to just make sure I clarify, he was talking peace agreement, not a ceasefire, not a temporary ceasefire, not an armistice, so to speak. He was talking a full-on peace agreement. A full-on peace agreement would be something that Ukraine agrees to, certainly something that Russia agrees to, but I can't see a full peace agreement without the concurrence of the Europeans, because the Europeans would probably have to provide the peacekeepers. They've already talked about 30,000 peacekeepers of European troops going in there potentially. So that would be a huge hurdle. Either of those things would be major steps. So it's not like stepping down in the middle of the war. He would step down when this war was truly over, when the threat from Russia was truly aside. And at that point, I think he could take a lesson from history with Churchill. At the end of World War II, Churchill did not do well politically. They said, thank you, you led the country, you kept us, and then he got voted out of office. And one of those great historical things that the U.S. said, how did that happen? And that's what happened to Churchill. He would probably say, hey, look, it is time to step aside.
Hal, let's talk about the war itself. We're talking about all these stories around the war and about the war. I want to talk about the war itself, because you're hearing from a lot of these leaders, and coming from the White House, coming from Europe, quite confident, very optimistic that some type of settlement or resolution is coming in the next few weeks, the next several weeks. We've heard that is a very optimistic timeline here. But I want to talk about the argument's being proffered by some who say that Ukraine has given it all they could, and they can't give any more. That Russia is making advances. Yes, the casualties are staggering, but that we, Europe and the United States, have done enough, all we can, and this is the trajectory of how the war will go. Stalemate. I want to read this from Jim Garrity at National Review. He said, in the span of 1 year, Russian forces gained territory that's equivalent to somewhere between Rhode Island and Delaware, the size of those states, costing Russia 429,000 casualties within 1 year of this 3-year war. So I wanted to put that perspective out there, and that was according to some of the UK Defense Ministry figures about the losses Russia has sustained here. Would you show those figures and those casualty numbers and those statistics proffered by the UK to some who are offering this argument about being skeptical of any more U.S. support, of any more security guarantees, because the war needs to stop, to freeze in place? What would you tell them?
Well, I'd say that those are Putin talking points. What you have to look at is what's happening in Russia. Economically, they are falling apart. There's various estimates, very smart estimates that say either by the end of 2025 or sometime in 2026, the Russian economy will have just completely run out of steam and collapse. So Putin is very well aware of that. And frankly, I do believe that despite the rhetoric, President Trump has at times mentioned the fact that Russia's economy is in a very bad situation. The other thing I'd point out is, first off, and I'm a Western states guy, so when you start saying, the size of Delaware and Rhode Island, I tend not to get too impressed with the size of those states. I'm sorry, it's a bias. I come from California and I've lived in the West, so our states are much bigger. Those are not, that sounds like impressive territory, but it's not a huge amount of territory. And if you look at the immense losses that Russia suffered and is suffering to gain very modest amounts of territory, they are not having much success. The other thing is when they've been pushing in the Donbass, they were met with what is some called a wall of drones. And that's where one of the things missed is about 70% of the casualties being inflicted, casualties both in terms of troops and with armor, being inflicted on the Russians, are being inflicted really to a large degree on both sides, but specifically on the Russians, about 70% are being inflicted by drones. These are everything from FPV, first-person view drones, to larger drones. These are long-range drones, short-range drones. Drones have revolutionized the battlefield. With that metric, and this is Ukrainian production, last year they produced about 1.5 million drones. This year they're estimated to produce 4.5. This is Ukraine manufacturing 4.5 million drones. You just do the math, you go, from a defensive standpoint, Russia just can't move very much. And now surprisingly, Russia, which has always been known as the big tank, heavy armor army since World War II, Ukraine has a preponderance of tanks on the battlefield. They actually have more tanks. Russia's way back. Troops on the battlefield in Ukraine, Ukraine's got the advantage. Sure, they've got a lot of problems. Don't get me wrong. They have manpower problems. They got all sorts of issues. But nobody doubts, even if the U.S. completely pulled out and said, we're not going to help at all, Ukraine will keep fighting throughout the year. And the Russians, if they make advances, will be modest advances, but there's nothing big.
Al, lastly and briefly, I want to ask you these two questions. What does a Ukrainian victory look like going into year 4? And what does a Ukrainian loss look like?
Well, a Ukrainian loss would be if the Russians go in there. And right now, with the situation on the ground, the only loss I can see would be really a political loss, where if the Europeans were to somehow lose their will to support the Ukrainians. But it's very difficult to see, certainly nothing like Putin was aiming for at the beginning of the war, where he thought he was going to sweep across Ukraine. That just does not seem to be in the cards for them anymore. So Ukraine could lose some territory. They could lose the entire Donbass, for example. And it's very possible that may be where Russia would stop and say, okay, let's sue for peace or come up with something. A Ukrainian victory, again, I don't think it'll be complete at this point. At one point, the thought was if they can get a breakthrough, like they tried in the summer of 23, if they could get a breakthrough, get well behind the Russian lines. And at that point, the Russians were in such a horrible shape that if that happened, we'd see where Russian lines would simply collapse. Something like World War I, where the Russian lines collapsed, and the Russian army literally turned and marched on Moscow. That probably is not going to happen either. So I don't see a huge Ukrainian victory. It's going to be movements a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but I just don't see either side achieving their full war goals or aims.
All right, Kemper, we're going to leave it at that. You're going to continue here on Live Now, providing such great analysis into this conflict that still rages on. Thanks so much, Hal.
Okay, thank you, Andrew.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the turmeric. This is a supplement that is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals, but it also brings down pro-inflammatory cytokines. So it's going to bring down inflammation and help with your immune system. You stack it with ashwagandha root, and ashwagandha root helps to control your cortisol levels and control your blood glucose levels. When you stack these together, this is a great combo to help with your immune system, but also to bring down inflammation, which will help with your overall inflammatory response in your body and your vascular system. So by bringing down that inflammation, you're reducing the chances of creating that inflammation that creates that new formation of plaque, an additional buildup of plaque. One of the first steps in that plaque formation process is inflammation. So if you bring down that inflammation in the vascular system, you're reducing the chances of building up new plaque. In addition, if you can keep that inflammation down and you take other supplements that I have in my longevity cardiovascular box, you can actually shrink plaque that has built up over the years. But it takes time. It takes about a year to see a large reduction, but it's possible to do, especially with proper diet, exercise, and that cardiovascular longevity box combo. And do that for a year, and you're gonna see a major improvement in vascular health, reducing that plaque buildup. So turmeric and ashwagandha, stack them together, help with your immune system and your cardiovascular health. Now, if you stack it with lignans, you're going to get added benefit because it's going to bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals. It's a powder. You mix it with soft foods or with filtered water. I mix it with soft foods. And you get a little scooper in this bottle. Take one small scoop a day. And you can take it by itself, but you get more bang for your buck with taking the lignans, the ashwagandha, and the turmeric together. And this is that third pillar of my health protocol. Remember what I said. The first pillar, max 35 or max 14. Boost up your immune system. C60 is the second pillar, to soak up free radicals. The third pillar, bring down inflammation by taking the lignans, the turmeric, and the ashwagandha. And the fourth pillar is boost up your metabolism and your energy levels with Boomer Boost. When you do all that, you're going to get super healthy. And you can customize your stack, based on whichever system that you are more concerned about. But lignans, ashwagandha, and turmeric, a great combo, great stack to help with your immune system, your endocrine system, and your cardiovascular health. Reduce inflammation can do wonders for your body. Chronic inflammation actually literally makes you age faster because chronic inflammation boosts up your cortisol levels in your serum, and cortisol is immunosuppressive and it causes damage to cells. So chronic cortisol levels, because of stress or even pain also increases cortisol levels. But a chronic exposure to cortisol is going to make you age faster. You don't want that. You want to soak up all that pro-inflammatory cytokines. Now, let me talk about another stack that's really important before we switch to another topic here. Ubiquinol. It's an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals. It helps with your energy levels and boosts up the health of your mitochondria, so you're going to have more ATP. And ubiquinol helps to protect your neurons. This is very important to take when you're older to help with neural health. Extremely important. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10. Most people that take CoQ10 is not ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10. So stop taking the crap that you're taking if you're taking CoQ10 and go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and literally buy the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can get, ubiquinol. So, and then you can stack it with NAD+. NAD+ can be taken separately, but it works better with the stack. NAD+ boosts up energy levels, but also it helps to repair DNA damage, cellular and mitochondrial. In addition, NAD+ will help to protect your neurons. So it's really important. Good stack when you get older to protect those neurons is ubiquinol and NAD+. And lastly, resveratrol. Resveratrol, again, stacks well with NAD+ or ubiquinol or C60. It's an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to help with your mitochondrial health, so it's going to boost up your energy levels. And it's going to help you get rid of cells that stop dividing. Because cells that stop dividing and don't go into apoptosis, they just collect garbage. And over time, if you actually look at histology slides of geriatric patients and look at tissue specimens, you'll see in these cells that are senesced in these elderly patients, lipofuscin, which is a sign of garbage that's collecting in your cells. Even in your cardiac, in your cardiac cells, you start building up lipofuscin, and then your heart just doesn't pump as well. There's an electrical signal that's through your sinus. There you have these AV nodes and sinus nodes and the bundle of His, right? You have an electric signal that goes through the heart. Well, if you have in your heart cells a lot of garbage, the electrical signal isn't going to go through those cells properly. Also, if there's scarring because of a prior heart attack, the electrical signal isn't going to work well. Or if people have some sort of collagen issue with collagen production, because of some sort of genetic disorder, then the electric signal won't perform as well. So there's many reasons why you may have a right or left heart block, and there's different degrees of heart block, right? And the electric signal isn't performing properly, and all the different problems of that. But one problem that could arise is just that the cardiac tissue is aging and it's collecting lipofuscin. Well, you don't want that, all right? So this is the reason why it's so important to be as healthy as possible so you don't have cells building up this lipofuscin and garbage, right? And getting rid of them. Now, the problem with cardiac cells is that they don't regenerate. But there are other tissues in your body that do regenerate. So for the tissues that do regenerate, resveratrol does really well with that because you're getting rid of those senesced cells, those cells that are in senescence. You're having them go into apoptosis and you're getting rid of the garbage. And then in the tissues that can regenerate because of adult stem cells, you're sending signals. There's a micro signaling that takes place that tells the adult stem cells to actually help to repopulate that tissue as those cells that are in senescence start to die off. And you're now clearing out the garbage, you're clearing out the bad cells, and you're generating a signal for new cells from those adult stem cells to populate, and the tissue is healthier. But not all tissues can do that. Not all tissues have a regenerative function. Cardiac tissue is one of them. But lipofuscin has been found to accumulate, and when you age faster, you're accumulating more of this lipofuscin. So that's a bad thing. You don't want that, all right? So it's better to detoxify your body and have really healthy mitochondria and have lots of ATP so the cells are functioning the best they can. You're bringing down stress. You're soaking up those free radicals. And when you do that, you're reducing the buildup of this garbage as we get older. All right? So there's a method to my madness, all right? And this is why it works. But you just got to be diligent. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements I have. Get the resveratrol. It stacks. You get the most benefit of resveratrol when you stack with C60, NAD+, and or ubiquinol. All right, let's go to. I want to pivot over to France 24. They're talking about the turning point for European defense.
Economy runs because we get cheap gas from Russia. We are defended by the US, and our exports go to China. The SPD in that world, the model sort of works. You make surpluses, which you distribute to the people, and it's happy. But the situation has changed, and the party hasn't. And you had at the helm of a party someone where you say, just because you're from Hamburg and you call yourself a pragmatist doesn't make you Helmut Schmidt. And I think that's a little bit. They were too confident in the fact that by being statesmanlike and sober and they're so realistic, in fact, they weren't. I think they were closing their eyes to the fact that.
Wasn't that the winning recipe for Angela Merkel? In fact, the jokes about Schultz was that he was called the Kanzlerin, the male chancellor.
Yeah, but the
even though she wasn't from his party.
But the times have changed, and have you seen the soul searching that's going on in Germany now about whether or not? Why did Germany not use the incredible budget surpluses it generated in the good years to invest in infrastructure? Like when you look now, trains crumbling, there's no infrastructure, there's not enough digital infrastructure, roads are not. So now we're in the painful process of rebuilding train bridges, railway bridges. And now there's suddenly no money. Well, what happened?
And it's German industry is leaving the country.
Yeah, and German industry thinks that. So what happened? And I think that's where there's a soul searching about
the soul. Is that the Social Democrats' fault?
It's both. It's both. But the fact is, the others took the lessons from it. And I think the Social Democrats refused to draw the lessons on some of the things that they were not entirely alone responsible, of course. But they didn't. I think. They didn't take enough distance to that work.
Michael Bloss, if you roll the clock back 3 years, was it a big mistake getting such disparate formations as the Social Democrats, the Greens, and the frugal liberal FDP to try to make a coalition?
Not at all. I think it was a coalition for modernization. That's what they called themselves in the beginning, and that was absolutely necessary. It was just described why. I think it just. I think it's the problem was just when the liberals found out that they were losing, they became basically the break in this whole coalition, and in this way couldn't continue with its course of modernization. So in this regard, it failed. Unfortunately, the need for modernization is still there, as was also just described. And this is, I hope, what is happening now. Actually, the responsibles for those not to invest were the conservatives. They were also very frugal, and they were also insisting on the debt rate. And interestingly, on the first day after the election, Merz changed on this. On defense, I hope he will also change on this on infrastructure and other important investments, because otherwise we will just lose.
Just final point on this, Miriam Daggerford.
Yes.
We don't know who's going to replace Olaf Scholz. Even in the negotiations that we're making a coalition.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it not yet for certain that it's Boris Pistorius, since everyone talks about him as being so popular?
Yeah, that's a little bit the question, where the SPD is a little bit shy in putting names forward. We see, and that was the discourse is currently like it is actually for almost every party, that the party gets together and they're going to decide what is going to happen and so on and so forth. I could imagine that it's also from the party the strategy also in a way to value Olaf Scholz, because we know when Olaf Scholz was then nominated as a candidate, there was a big struggle, or it was unclear whether it's going to be both Pistorius or him. In the end, it was him, and in a way, maybe it's also a chance for that the party is giving him and also the whole party to say, okay, we have been happy with this candidate, and we will put the other one forward in a few days.
Right. Well, in any case, now what we have is certainly a changing of the guard. Congratulations coming in from near and far, including from the French president. Emmanuel Macron overnight tweeted that he'd spoken to Merz to say congrats, and to Scholz to express friendship. There, he's tweeted in German. Macron's missive concluding with the following: in these times of uncertainty, we stand united to face the great challenges facing the world and our continent. The words Donald Trump are not written in that line, but we all understand that that's kind of, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, higher on his mind than even Vladimir Putin.
Well, the wake-up call has never been until now successful. I see this necessity of a real wake-up call, of a reset call in modern politics since some years, but it never worked up till now.
So let me ask you,
I hope so it works now, and the last who has been, let's say, waking up the Europeans has been Donald Trump. But for me, the first Donald Trump has been waking up the Europeans. Putin is the other story, if you want. Putin is, we missed all the opportunities, in my view, to avoid that war in Ukraine. Several times. And this is not due to Olaf Scholz, it's due to Angela Merkel, by the way.
And we're seeing those images from a little while ago in the Oval Office, and it's Emmanuel Macron sitting alongside Donald Trump. Macron, effectively right now, the president of Europe, even though it's officially the former Portuguese Prime Minister, Mr. Costa. Could the Franco-German couple be back?
Well, maybe in a different way than before, but I do think that both of the leaders.
I mean, if the Germans spend seriously on defense,
I guess they are willing to. But I do think what is also important, and that's also something we see in the post that Macron did, and you have been asking why isn't he mentioning anybody else but Europe, and I do think that what he is doing there is constructivism. He is constructing Europe the way that he wants it to, because he is not wanting to make a Europe, at least in his mind, as a reaction only to some of other veto players around the world. He is trying to put the focus in here, and that's something that Europe deeply needs in order to find an identity, and also not only to talk about policy areas, but to have a larger group among Europeans who really support the idea. And I do think that this is what he is putting forward, and it's his agenda since quite some time, the speeches at the Sorbonne, and so on and so forth, from my perspective.
Don't forget, will have a German Chancellor who has won his first political experience in European Parliament.
There's some breaking news happening. Trump wants to expand Biden's chip curbs against Beijing, including seeking NVIDIA export controls and pressuring key allies.
Friedrich Merz and Emmanuel Macron both talking strategic autonomy.
Let's see. I mean, the same what Macron did to Angela Merkel, and he came forward to Olaf Scholz, and now he comes forward to Merz. And until now, the German response was always a bit reluctant. I mean, but the main criticism that I have here is that he doesn't take the European level with him. I mean, that's I don't understand why he goes alone to Trump, why he has this small round table. I think von der Leyen should have been there, or at least the Commissioner for Defense.
Von der Leyen was in Kyiv today, so part of along with all those leaders.
I understand that, but the point is that like Europe is is also bigger than Germany and France. And especially when we talk about Ukraine, there is a question about, there is the question of Poland. So let's, if we want to use Europe, and we need to use Europe right now, the market, the defense spending, we need to develop now an own kind of strength in the world.
Michael Bloss, we know that Donald Trump.
Union with us.
Michael Bloss, we know Donald Trump doesn't like lots of people in the room. He likes one-on-one meetings. And here he's speaking to another nuclear power, like he'll be speaking to another nuclear power on Thursday when he meets with Keir Starmer. Wasn't this the best way to have the likes of Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa in Kyiv while Macron is in Washington?
To my knowledge, that was not all coordinated. So that's the first problem. If that would be a coordinated effort, maybe. But also, like, we should not get like our negotiation dictated by who Trump wants to talk to and who he doesn't. That's also part of the new European strength if you want to, present us as well.
Because there's a second truth about Donald Trump. Donald Trump respects strength. And if we come divided and you've got this guy and then come this guy, he feels he can just play one against the other. And that is the biggest danger for Europe, is that in order to come up and have the most feathers, people may lose sight.
So who would you have sent for that instead of Macron for that photo op there? Who would you have sent?
No, I'm not saying Macron shouldn't be, but he should be an envoy for Europe, and it needs to be coordinated. That they meet before symbolically, and
See,
then
these clowns are not talking. What I remember with the whole formation of the European Union and the converting over of different currencies to the euro. All right. When I spent time in Germany, I remember you got Deutschmarks at the bank to convert your currency, and you spent in Germany, and the change that you would get would be euros, and that slowly converted Deutschmarks into euros. All right. So I was in Germany when this was all happening. This was in 1999. All right. So the whole thing with the European Union is Germany was the economic arm. All right. The powerhouse, the financial powerhouse. All right. Because of its boomed, or the bond market, and France was the political arm. So looking at it from a US perspective, it would be kind of like saying New York City and Washington, D.C. All right, Washington, D.C. is the political region, and the financial region, the financial engine of the country is New York City. That's what the European Union is. So it made no sense for German leaders to really kind of like say who really represents the European Union other than someone coming from France. Even though the European Union has an election and I don't know what they call it, a prime minister or some sort of head of the parliament. They have an official kind of like parliamentary president kind of thing, but the president, that's what was going on with that. With is kind of like the Speaker of the House or the head of the Senate, the majority leader in the Senate, something like that. With this parliamentary system of the EU, but who's really the president? Who really represents the president? Someone that you need to talk to that actually can get things done. Is it really the parliamentary president of the EU or whatever they call it? That female, I don't even know her name. Is she really the power broker, or is the French president the power broker? Or the prime minister, or I guess Macron is the president. I don't even know what they call themselves. But the point here is that France is like Washington, D.C. All right. And Germany is like New York. And Brussels is like, it's like the hill. That's how I see it. Now, maybe that's simplistic. Maybe that's US simplicity. I don't know. But the thing is, Germany is definitely the financial manufacturing arm of Europe, but not the political. That's France for sure. They even have universities where if you go to, I mean, you don't go to be a engineer in France. You go to France to be a politician, right? But Germany, well, you might want to go to a Polytech Institute. That's where the engineering is. So that's just my simplistic American experience of being in Europe. But let me plug 2 more products and then we're gonna shut down here. Boomer Boost is the last pillar of my protocol. It has 68 nutrients. The profile is pretty extensive. Take a look at the label on my website carefully. This targets multiple systems. It targets your heart and your vascular system. It targets your brain. It targets your muscles and your strength, boosts up your energy levels, and boosts up your metabolism. You will lose weight when you take this, and there's many benefits that you're going to get within 72 hours or less. All right? This is something that I take every day. Either take it in the morning or in the afternoon in replacement of your breakfast or your lunch. You take it with soft foods or with filtered water or with a shake, a smoothie, whatever. Sometimes people mix it with milk, however you want to take it, but that you take that every day for your breakfast or for your lunch. You will lose weight. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have a lot more energy. And not only that, it's like a really steady burn throughout the whole day. It's not like you get an energy surge and then crash. It's a steady burn throughout the whole day. Not just that, you're bringing down inflammation, you're building up strength, you're helping your brain health. So you're going to have more mental acuity. You're going to be able to focus better. You're going to sleep better. So there's lots of benefits that you get, and you're going to start feeling like, wow, wait a minute, something's different. Now it's because of the 68 ingredients that are in here, and it's a superfood. It's a kind of a high density not protein, but powder that's in here. Okay, and it has all these different ingredients to help boost up your health and have that continuous energy level throughout the day. You'll recover quicker when you work out. You'll have the energy to work out. You won't be lethargic at all. So please go to my store, take the Boomer Boost every day, either for lunch or for breakfast. Do that every day. And you're going to lose weight. So that's great, because most people in America are too fat. Now, with the Gladiator barley, this is the high density protein. It's an heirloom barley, so you're going to have more nutrients in the barley than you would get at an organic food store. All right, you won't be able to buy this kind of barley, at your normal grocery store. So, Gladiator barley or heirloom barley you can take separately. It's a high density protein, but it works better when you mix it with the Boomer Boost, which is what I'll call a high density powder, because it has all these different ingredients in it. You mix it with, the Gladiator barley, you can mix it with the same way as with the Boomer Boost and what kind of foods to take with it, or just filtered water. But you take it every day. You can take a half a scoop or a full scoop. You get a big scooper in this container. Take a half a scoop or a full scoop. All right. And what's going to happen is you're going to be detoxifying your body. You're going to bring down inflammation. So that means that you're helping your immune system, but you're also recovering quicker after a workout. It has superoxide dismutase, so it's going to soak up free radicals a different way than C60 or NAC. NAC soaks up free radicals through the glutathione pathway. C60 is soaking up free radicals by neutralizing the free radical with that molecule, the C60 molecule. And then Gladiator Barley is reducing your free radicals using superoxide dismutase. So the different ways that you soak up the free radicals, the better. All right. And when you do resistance training, what's going to happen is you're going to have, because it's a high density protein, you're going to build muscle. Now, this stacks really well with Myotrol, because Myotrol, that's on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, helps with the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. Gladiator Barley is a high density protein that's the actual building blocks to make the new muscle and to maintain the muscle, especially when you do the resistance training. So that's a great stack, Gladiator Barley with Myotrol. Now, by stacking Boomer Boost and Gladiator Barley with or without the Myotrol, you're going to be able to really improve your A1C levels. So you're going to lose weight, you're going to gain muscle, and you're going to control your diabetes. These two products right here, Gladiator Barley, Boomer Boost, watching what you eat, proper diet and exercise, is actually going to seriously make you healthy. Now, remember what systems it's targeting. It's targeting your muscles, it's targeting your brain health, your cardiovascular health, your energy levels are going to go up, and your metabolism is going to go up. And you're also bringing down inflammation, so it's helping your immune system. So this is a great way to get healthy. And I'm sure that the cost of a Gladiator Barley container and a Boomer Boost container once a month is cheaper than what you are paying for a month for your breakfast or for your lunch. And I'm sure for your breakfast and your lunch, it's probably making you fat. So why not just follow my lead here and take the Boomer Boost and the Gladiator Barley? Now, you don't have to take the Gladiator Barley. You can, there's also the Heirloom Barley, which doesn't focus on the strength side of it, but you still detoxify, you still bring down inflammation and soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. And you can take the barley by itself, or you can just take the Boomer Boost by itself, but you get added benefit if you stack it. And I think that's a major point that I've been saying throughout this broadcast. Stacking enhances the supplements, and it's a holistic approach. All right, you don't take Boomer Boost and then keep on eating a 5,000 calorie diet unless you're a triathlete. All right, but the thing is, the average person is not a triathlete. So but unfortunately, there are many people in America that are eating 5,000 calorie diet. All right, you want a proper diet, proper exercise, proper supplementation. It's about stacking. Stacking is really important. Proper sleep. You got to do the resistance training, the cardio, the balancing, the stretching, all four of them. Learn new things, proper sleep, mindfulness, spirituality. And when you do all that, when you approach this in a holistic way, you're going to get healthy for sure. But you just got to be diligent. So please go to my store, get the Boomer Boost, get the Gladiator Barley, get healthy. This is a great way to control your diabetes, lose weight, improve your strength, improve your cardiovascular health, improve your brain health. And like I said, you take this, and you're going to notice within 72 hours a difference, a positive difference in your body. 72 hours or less, depends on your body. But in 72 hours, you're going to feel a major difference, and you're going to be sleeping better. Now, I don't know exactly what combination of different nutrients that are in the Boomer Boost that actually helps with that, but it works. All right. 68 nutrients all packed in one little container. This is a great buy. All right. And I made it even more simple for you. I made a longevity boost box that if you want to take the Boomer Boost and the barley, get the longevity boost box. It's at a discount. It's a built-in discount. You get the Boomer Boost and your choice of Gladiator barley or heirloom barley. It's cheaper. So get the longevity boost box, and you can use discount 5 and you get another $5 off. Or you can buy these separately and use discount 5 and get $5 off. It's up to you. All right. But I want you to get healthy. I wish this stuff was around that I knew about before my brother died. Because believe me, if he was using this stuff with proper diet and exercise and this supplementation, he wouldn't have died from a heart attack. Now it's your choice. You know, you want to get involved, you want to get in the game, or do you just want to waste away like the average American citizen? It's up to you. But all the knowledge that I just gave to you is the recipe for you to get healthy. Thank you for listening. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. For the ones that have been watching the live stream on YouTube, thank you very much. For the ones that were in X Spaces, thank you for listening. I'll do another broadcast tomorrow. And I'm a little tired now. I got to get ready for bed because proper sleep is going to make me age less. And you don't want Dr. Paul Cottrell to get old, right? So thank you for listening. Have a nice day.